call the meeting to order at 12:18 for the August 8th Executive Committee meeting of OregonServes. And we need to approve our previous meeting minutes from that date was June 13th.
I will make a motion to approve the June 13th meeting.
Thank you, Sierra. And I'll go ahead and second. Um, those in favor? Aye. You and me, Sierra. All right. So thank you for approving those. Great. And I'm just bopping between the two things. So I have to get back to, okay. Do we have any public comment?
I don't believe so.
No. Okay. And any announcements?
I put that on there as an addition and maybe like a practice to start so that when people commission roles especially don't have like a designated report out,
Mhm.
is just making space for that inclusion.
That's good. And I think we had that some time ago too. And I think that's
Yeah,
good to go ahead and do that.
I was gonna add that to all the agendas.
Yeah. Perfect.
You might have to like coach people into doing it again and they may be like, I don't have anything to say, but they probably do.
Yeah. Great. Okay, Carrie, we are going to jump over to your report out.
It changes by the minute first.
It's drinking from a fire hose right now. Let's tell you.
So one of the reasons why I didn't just write down, a bunch of stuff is because I know it's just going to change basically. And it literally has in the last, day and even in the last 5 minutes. I'll get into that, but I do just want to mention real quick, if you haven't seen it, I guess is a good example of how fast things are changing and why I'm going to be throwing some stuff out that is kind of a new thinking around some things in order to like get guidance, approval and whatnot. But so executive order was just issued, putting into practice as an executive order, things that the multi-state lawsuit that we're involved in that the judge literally just issued the preliminary injunction against. And so obviously like that's probably going to cause some additional upheaval and analysis and trying to, I would assume that there would be some pivoting with the different lawsuits and so forth.
You have the EO number off the top of your head for that, Carrie?
Yeah, let me pull it up. So essentially, a lot of the things that, are being addressed in a lot of these different lawsuits, it's that, in some cases, it's not even an argument that that's not allowable or legal. But it's that if you're going to do that, if you might have the power to do that, but if you're going to do it, you have to follow the law. You have to follow the process. Like you have to work through that, right? And so I would say, just like out of my non-legal, lawyer brain, though, that it seems like some of the things that are being argued in that context are now just being like, no, we can just do this through the executive order. So let me pull that up, but it's, I know it. So that is improving oversight of federal grant making. I'll actually just put a page link in the chat if that's easiest. So basically, one of the lines that stands out and why this is like concerning is because some of the things we're going to be getting into are like dealing with the fact that we still don't have some of our operating grant funds. And so one of the lines that is within this I just realized my music wasn't this executive order is around at their interest and convenience, if they've decided that the grant for any reason whatsoever without notice and so forth, it does not effectuate priorities, it can be terminated. And so if you go back to our multi-state lawsuit, there's that's what we're arguing, and the states are arguing the lawsuit. That's what that preliminary injunction was addressing and so forth. So we'll keep you posted on how that goes, but that's just a good example of sort of like the pivoting that's required in a lot of these situations. But to just give a general update on the multi-state lawsuit, as I said, we do not have our KIF. We received our 25 CSG, 25 KIF, and National Direct competitive funds, Vista funds, and senior funds. well, I'll back up. Ours isn't even getting reviewed, but at this point, but those other ones, those they have received notice of award pending release of FY25 appropriated funds. And so what you'll recall is that these are the congressionally approved funds. Hey, Daniel, from March. And so when with the 24 grant terminations and with the preliminary injunction that was successfully acquired in that, that really only addressed the terminated formula funds, because as you'll recall, operating grants for commissions weren't part of that. And so when the PI said must return operations to status quo at AmeriCorps, that didn't impact operating funds. It doesn't cover that as part of the purview. So as I understand it, there's, we're all keeping the DOJ and the different lead states updated. I've been doing a lot of outreach with seniors programs and also National Direct. Like our friend Greg on the commission has 95 members ready to deploy for Jesuit Volunteer Northwest and can't do so, which is a 25% increase in recruitment for them, by the way. So, I hate to lose that. And so keeping them really updated. I can't go into details of the lawsuit, but I mean, it wouldn't be like surprising if there isn't, obviously some additional things to be addressed around getting like our operation funds released and so forth. I think it is public and did occur and has been filed that Russell Vaught was added to as a defendant, as that is the director of the OMB, who ultimately has the authority, I guess, for saying that those funds can be awarded and released. So there's are things that are going on with that. Any questions about that real quick? So yeah, I would expect that probably there would be some additional movements, and curious what it will happen now that this EO has come out today. And Daniel, what I was just letting them know is as an example of how quick things are moving around here. There was just an EO that just came out that we just all got alerted to right before this call in the commission network, that is through executive order saying that there's authority to do things which are actually things that the lawsuit is saying can't, that the judge said no on, and not necessarily that you don't have the power to do that, but you need to do it the right way. And so just saying, like, that's just another example of sort of like, things moving fast. But so yeah, we definitely need our grant funding. We do have 24 KIF and CSG no cost extensions, and we did receive obviously our state fund match to and our 25 CSG. But because we don't have our KIF grant, and this is every state commission that doesn't have our KIF grant, we can't hire our open positions. And so we're definitely facing capacity issues right now. The team is me, Madeline, and Mackenzie, and our admin assistants. And so we cannot hire our partner engagement person, that our TTA person that does the partner engagement and all the training development and all these different things. That's where some of the funding for some of the commission board activities fall for a lot, our AmeriCorps orientation, our life after, different stuff like that. I'm able to amend some of that to move under the one we got an extension on through 2026. And now, it's 24, 26 for that one. But I bring this up because I'm going to be sharing some thoughts I have around amending some of our plans for state service development, both to reflect that things are unknown, but also we kind of have to conserve a little bit because we don't know how long we're going to really need to rely on these funds and really stretch them. Before I get into that, though, I did just want to check my notes really quick because I feel like I jumped over something I did want to mention. Some good news. How about that? How about I do some good news really quick? So I do want to give a quick update that we are continuing with our NGA Service to Career Pathway Policy Academy work. We've got some upcoming meetings with like OHA and others who did receive through the session some behavioral and mental health funding. So we can do further alignment and collaboration there. And I just want to say, like, the staff that I just mentioned, Mal and Mackenzie, have just been amazing in having to pivot and re-strategize and recalculate so many different times, because there's a lot going on with our grantee portfolio, and this is really, there's a lot of unfortunate impacts that have occurred because of this instability and how late things are happening. But the good news is, we do now have our formula fixed and our formula cost reimbursing grants awarded. This just happened. We're really excited about that. We are going to, the grant agreements are happening right now, getting drafted right now by procurement, and hope to get those out as soon as possible. It's still going to be the case that a lot of our grantees are, we're 2 months behind on when this would normally happen because of all the disruptions at the federal level. They're definitely, they're having to do a lot of pivoting as well, because they're having to start so late. They normally would have been orienting and onboarding members and had them placed by mid-July probably. Now they're just now, with some of them, they weren't even sure if they could recruit, really, because there was no pre-award costs that could be approved. And so this is all getting a pretty late start. It's going to have an impact on education programs and others, and it's going to be where they, first, in some cases, the partners, the service sites are, probably going to need to make adjustments and whatnot as well. Unfortunately, we've had quite a few, as I've stated, entities that, because of all of this, they did have to decline either funding that was maybe eventually going to come, but they weren't sure, and they couldn't secure their match, or they simply just couldn't hold on, or they've in some cases the organization has closed down, not just shut down the AmeriCorps program. So just officially wanted to let you know that MFS, Rare, Core J, Ethos, and College Possible and PSA are no longer going to have AmeriCorps programs in our portfolio. We do have a full portfolio, a lot of new programs, very excited about that. We have Heart of Oregon actually coming back, and we have Confluence that is continuing on. Madeline is working really hard to also get some new grantees under our Youth Mental Health Core grant. That is going to be pushed out a little bit too, but they were really great at finding some ways where we could kind of, put some funding in placeholders so that we could do like second rounds of grant making. Is one of those cases where by the time you find out you got the funding, you've lost some of your applicants, and then you need more time. And so they've been really great at working with all of that. But we've had quite a few that have been impacted and will no longer be continuing. We
Really
expect to
quickly,
have, go ahead.
Carrie, out of curiosity, I know you were talking about like push timelines, etc. But I'm wondering if it'll probably depend by server site, but because they didn't know what funding allocation, it was up in the air, right? So did they hold off everything, or did they at least start the recruitment process, and then once they got word that like funds are headed that way, then they like resumed where they started? Or did they wait on the whole thing until this notice came up, like, yes, funding is available, but hey, like we haven't even started recruiting? So I know you said that like there'll be a late start, but I'm even thinking it'll be even a later start because you need to recruit, outreach, etc., before you even get applicants. So I know that I hope that makes sense, but like is it going to depend by service site on like where in the process they are now, knowing that they like with this funding notice, like are they starting from scratch now that they've received this notice, or are they resuming a process that they've already started as a service site?
Most of them were shutting down and doing the closeout processes for the 24 year. And then with 25, some of them are really starting, recruitment now because of the timing. You would normally, we would normally receive the notice of award a lot earlier, and then we would know that that's coming in, so we could say, hey, you can start doing pre-award activities. And so staff time can be used to, da 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 da. prior to the start of actually getting the grant agreement. In this case, and especially because of volatility, we're literally just now finding out. And so they're just now getting approval for pre-award costs for this year. So they're in many cases, yeah, starting recruitment, or if they had people on the line, they probably said, we'll have to reach out to you in another month or two and hope, and then they hope those people are still there. I know with the seniors programs, even though we don't administer those, but I, you know, as one of the ones that are waiting for their funds from the feds, the ones that are being withheld, I know they had overlapping years, and many have had to both like lay off, you know, their senior volunteers, but also they can't recruit, or they had people to, you know, that were going to do like an additional, like the next year, but they can't like place them. So it's chaos a little bit, to tell the truth with that. But I mean, everybody's doing the best they can with that situation. But in most cases, it's a lot of starting from.
The thumbs up is that all makes sense. I figured that. Honestly,
I
it does
didn't, I
depend
took
on,
it that you were like,
not as
yes, you
like a
answered the question,
awesome.
not like, yay, that's,
No,
you
like
know,
that
what
all
I was
makes
hoping
sense.
for.
Thumbs
So,
up. Thanks for the
yeah.
clarification, because I know that it will depend on site. I mean, it's
No, yeah.
it does depend by like capital and like what they have to be able to cover before, like, hey, like we can't operate like unless you put the money in our pockets. And there might be some other folks that are like, we can operate a little bit before you give us more money than we like, it backfills our pockets.
Yeah,
But
but if the year for like allowability, like even if they were like, we have other funds that, you know, are our match for the federal award that we have on hand now, if
Mhm.
that's happening, that expenditure outside of the actual grant award time period, then it's not match. Like you can't use it as match. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? So it's like, it really is, the clock starts once
what?
the award
Yeah,
happens from AmeriCorps, which for formula literally happened on like Monday or no, it happened on Friday.
gotcha. Yeah, thanks for the
Yeah.
clarification.
Yeah.
Chaos. I agree.
And I will also say that in a couple of cases where we were like, we think we have your funding, they already had to lay off staff. There's no one to restart the program.
Do
So
we
now we figure
know?
out what to do with that money. You know, so it's a lot. There's a lot of.
I know in some states I've heard, like, because I know with College Possible as an example, like college advising corps and that kind of thing. Have they been able to backfill with other types of funds, or are they just completely
Well, with College Possible in particular, they are discontinuing. We were going
okay?
to move them into our formula when they were just
Right.
competitive. And they are one of the ones, including Rare, who it made the instability and then not being sure about even the stability of their required matching funds had them
Okay.
decline. College Possible is actually unrolling. They're actually also a national direct. They're going to think to stick with National Direct, and they're launching an AI based model for some of their services.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah. So with all of that, um, with funding not coming in for state service commissions, with many programs having, you know, many state service commissions having smaller grantee portfolios, many of the grantees not being able to bring on members, you know, for quite a while now, having smaller amount of members out there, an additional impact that's occurring is that this is putting Ask into a bit of a budget crisis. So we did receive notice, and as I understand it, that's public, that they will be laying off for staff and furloughing and taking pay cuts and other things because a lot of their budget is dependent on the payments and charge, you know, and percentages of membership costs and things like that that state commissions give. With all of this, what we had talked about wanting to do for the state service plan, because we are due to develop a new 3-year plan. I would like to get your to pitch and then I guess see what you think, but that we do what we did in 2017 with when I was first appointed interim and we were transitioning state agencies, is that we did a 1-year addendum update to our existing state service plan. thinking ahead for 3 years feels like a bit of a fool's errand to me at this point. And but that's not to say that some very tight, targeted direction and goals and priorities don't need to be set, because they do. I mean, more than ever, like, what is our course, our course for this? So my pitch here is that we know that we have the civic health index data, the quantitative data. I am going to be I'm going to have a contractor do some like synthesizing some existing assessments of various service to career pathways for youth and young adults and so forth that are in existence, as well as like identifying and giving some recommendations on potential like gaps that national service and or state core could fill, et cetera, et cetera. Really looking at creating that infrastructure for service to career and those building blocks, and also partnering with the our other partners, I guess the easiest word to say there, Oregon Youth Works and right? How do we leverage like apprenticeship models and things like that? So we'll have some data from that, and that will include a little bit like probably a few focus groups with like some youth representation, workforce, apprentice, there is also a few new reports out national level. I think that with that data and the things being that would come out of that, I think that could probably inform decently with maybe, some survey or another like kind of session or something, not a full, we want to honor our commitment to elevating voices and engaging the community, but I think a truncated like process would make sense. And so I think that those things could still be utilized to inform an addendum to the state service plan. Something that I think could work is that we still, for kind of, like a September meeting, have a virtual meeting as we do. Maybe we'd make it a couple of hours to be able to talk a little bit more around, approval of all these like processes and procedures and things that membership committee is looking at. But take the all-day retreat, and I think we have an opportunity here to utilize Ask and see if they could. We also aren't going to be able to bring members in person for a kickoff because they're starting so late. We can't just have them pull everybody back in from the field. Like, I mean, in the middle of that time period, it's also, not like fiscally, it's just that I don't think it's going to work. So we have some cost saving that's occurring from not having the big, like, kickoff event. We also had like $50,000 contract for the state service plan for a big process. I'm being encouraged to knock that in half because again, we might need to really be stretching funds. We're not sure what this is going to look like with getting our incoming grant. So my pitch would be that we could potentially also utilize Ask by not having to do an RFP. I could do a contract with them. We know Kyra's in town. We could fly Casey and or Rachel in town or whoever, and essentially have them do some, synthesizing that data from those things, maybe do some pieces of data collection and lead a discussion of that data, as well as lead a policy discussion, a policy development discussion, with maybe then the goal that we have some basic ideas of where we want to prioritize and so forth. So we'd be able to kind of then have some sort of draft. We'd be able to then probably by the end of the year through a couple of follow-up board meetings approve. And I could envision where maybe some of that policy development stuff, which we also have the legislative concept development due at the end of the year, that some of that work could maybe go into the public policy committee. And so in that sense, by the start of the year, maybe even approving like January meeting, we could have an approved like state plan draft or something, or even by the end of the year. But I haven't pitched that to Kyra and them to make sure that they're even available at this point, but I didn't want to, I also wanted to kind of see thoughts from you all. So that's kind of the bulk of kind of what I wanted to put out there, and why I think that this could be a benefit and kind of address some efficiencies and cost cutting, but also utilize experts in the field who also probably wouldn't, know the state, have that information, and we wanted to engage anyways, and I'm sure would be eager for the contracts.
On your comment on, do you call it like the kickoff? Is that what it is for members that were
Yeah.
probably Xing out? The
No, they're
in-person,
coming in.
yes, the
Oh.
in-person like version of it. Is there an alternative that you have thought
We would
about
probably
or
go back to, yes, like a virtual kickoff like we did during the pandemic. And so one of the things that I had pitched is that we do the virtual kickoff. We actually can use an opt-in in our opt-in menu that Ask has for event registration support, which would cover us not really having like our event person.
Mhm.
We also know that we didn't get our disaster position. So we're trying to get Orvid over to ODEM, and we're going to be doing some help with them on legislative concept stuff. But we still have a responsibility to deploy national service members during disaster. So
Mhm.
we really need to build that capacity and that training. So one of the things that I also think I would be interested in pitching is seeing if we could also contract with them for some training. Maybe like the second hour of the kickoff be like, hey, this is a 101 on national service and disaster and what goes on in Oregon. And then maybe like, another hour, like a few weeks later of a more advanced, like this is, volunteer management during disaster and stuff like that, because we need like the field to be trained. And so that could be a way to like, make that happen. They do a lot with national service and disaster as well, as does. So they
Gotcha.
should have those resources. So
And I
I'm
know
just like
that
really trying to optimize time and money here.
time and money, yeah. And
Time, money, and resources.
I
Yeah.
know that I mean I since I did AmeriCorps Vista, my swearing in ceremony and my like kickoff was all virtual. And I know that like it works and you do feel like a sense of community because you're like connected with so many people who are about to like start the year. Um and then when I talked to some other folks who were doing like their service and they did like an in-person and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And so it's
And
like a
they
mix of
have their own in-person
yeah,
orientation
okay.
with their program. It's just
Awesome.
our kickoff thing
Yeah.
being,
And I'm just thinking
if
like,
that
what
helps.
is that? What is like the one piece that we can be like, we're switching to virtual, but
Yeah.
here is swag. Here is like something that's like, we're just like completely scrapping the idea, like somewhere in the middle, right? Like we're not going
Yeah.
to be spending the entire expenses that like we normally would. Like we can't foot that bill, but like what can we do that's like in the middle? Like here's something, we're trying
Yeah.
our best, because it is a little bit of best of both worlds. Because I remember I did my swearing in ceremony like alone in my cubicle, and I was like,
Yeah. Well,
yay.
our swearing in part is kind of like extra because they tend to do their own swearing in with their program and their cohort, like their members in person with the grantee. Because our kickoff is always after their orientation. They're like, please no, like we need to do this. Don't make us try out for this. But when we do the grantee orientation, which we had to push out because of the grant award delays, but it's going to be very beginning of September, I think. We give all the swag to them and then they give it to the members at their orientation, and then they do the swearing in and training. So our kickoff, we try to focus on maybe like a training piece, and then like we duplicate the breakout room, regional breakout or focus area breakout room that we do in person, like on the Zoom or whatever, and have like volunteer facilitators for that. And that's gone pretty good. We'll have like welcome message. This is what the commission does. Last time we had, we're usually ask a couple of you all that are alumni to maybe just do a quick, like, this is what I wish I knew before I started, and like welcomes and stuff like that. So it's been pretty good. It definitely doesn't replace that whole day thing, but
And I think, being, sorry to interrupt,
no,
being that we are so used to virtual now, it's sort of a known, like, and it's hard to get people together in person. It's not as a big of a deal as it used to be at the beginning of the pandemic, with like,
not as soulless as
yeah,
it felt
yeah.
at this.
And I participated in one of them, and
Yeah.
I mean it was
And
really
Sierra
well
was a
attended.
facilitator.
Yeah, yeah. And
Okay.
so the September 11th, there's still that planned to do the directors.
It's the 26th.
Oh, the
Remember
20th.
there were two dates
No, no,
and
no, no. So the 11th is for, I'm looking at the schedule for the program director orientation.
oh, is that the new date? Yeah, you're probably right.
And then the commission meeting is the 26th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So one of my questions would be, if you think that that's a worthwhile like format to pursue, should I also, well, we might have to be because this is based on people, if Ask even can do it, but do you think that that's a 1 day thing? Should we look at doing a 2 day or an overnight or pushing it out or anything? That's the other thing I'd ask you all to think about.
Well, a conflict has come up in my life for the 26th. So I want to talk about that briefly
Sure, go
because
ahead.
my time as chair is
Mhm.
like,
Yeah, it's winding down. I have news for that, but go ahead.
okay. And I can join part of that day remotely,
Mhm.
but I won't be able, I have to go to Phoenix. My mom's having a procedure, so I need to help her. But um just also wanted to put in there like when do we go through our next cycle of chair, vice chair?
So we need
And
to do elections in September too.
right.
And that's why a 1 day thing is feeling really tight to me. Um,
My
you know,
concern about, I mean, because I've, participated in the 2 day, which is great as well. I'm just concerned about people being able to make that commitment
I know.
to do a 2 day.
Yeah, a 2 day, like an overnight sort of situation, scheduling, but also the costs associated with that. I think that if we did a 2 day, that maybe it could be um both hybrid over two
Mhm.
different days, like 2 different Fridays or something like that, a little bit more spaced out.
We also, I agree. There's a lot of there's some training that we wanted to incorporate too, like from the ethics commission, a bunch of new stuff. And so we have opportunity to have like closed session items like trading and things like that, but then other parts that should be open. And so I was kind of wondering, like, yeah, is this another thing where we do break that up into some. I think that I think that the thing, of like talking about policy and hearing the data, different things like that, that feels really like, in the election stuff feels very in person to me.
Hmm.
Um, where maybe the complimentary, session to that could be online, where it's the voting for, just the final votes on like, oh, here's the updates, but also like final votes on like those processes and documents and stuff. Um, it's and then like the ethics training in that.
Which maybe that's a carryover into October. We
Yeah.
don't have an October date on the books right now. We have a November, but just, I think
Yeah.
if I'm looking correctly, yeah.
We also we also have two new people that are going to be appointed. Um I'm not allowed to say their names until they're appointed, but it'll be really exciting. Someone is it's a youth person, another person is that's who Daniel knows, who I was aiming for, and so that was a yes. And then uh we have another seniors representative. We also will then move another person who actually is a labor rep into the labor rep, and I have let them know that you are transitioning out. But we do need to also have elections, so we have quite a few things going on. Could I request a follow-up executive committee meeting to this meeting when I have more updated information of if, well, I guess it's two things. One-year addendum makes sense. Two, I think we can utilize these partners and resources. If they say no, we still would want to do a 1-year addendum.
Yeah, and I agree with the 1 year addendum. I think with where we're at with everything, that makes sense. Um, it's more manageable and
Yeah.
tangible, knowing that we're in constant transition right now, as we were, when you were appointed and we were in that transition phase, it made absolute sense too. So, Yeah. And I think
So
for us to meet again as executive committee in the next few weeks
yeah, where I
before.
could have maybe something
Yep.
just like, yeah, a little bit more of like a
Yeah.
sketched out kind of draft and agenda based on like who I get yes or no's from, I guess, and availability. But it also sounds to me like I feel like because of the other delays that have happened to the data collection that needs to inform this process, to me, I feel like we would be looking to push that date out another week or two into October for that retreat, if possible. So
Can I ask, thinking about elections, sorry
mm,
to sort of
no, it's
go
okay.
in that direction. It feels like it often comes up and it's like, I don't know if our commission knows like what the responsibilities are. And I would love for, obviously, Daniel and Sierra being as involved as you've been, you know what it takes
Yeah.
to do this work. But like to put it out there early on and say, hey, these are coming up at our next meeting, please consider. And like, I'd be happy to make myself available to talk about the things.
Yeah, like off ramp and
Yeah, and
everything.
just
And
really like helping people envision themselves in these roles so we have that succession planning versus it
yeah,
sometimes it feels really rushed. Um,
yeah. And some of the work that's in that handbook revision is around clarifying roles and responsibilities a little bit. And I wanted some of that to come to you all before, because I think that you can approve some of it, but it doesn't have to go to the full board. So ideally, if I could have you all look at that stuff and approve that, then it would be ready for this meeting, this retreat, for to do all this housekeeping and commission business. So that's why I think too, like a follow-up, like an in-between executive committee for all of that to still happen would make sense.
yeah.
I also just want to mention, and this makes me very sad, but Sierra and Shanika are also terming off. And Sierra,
When is
I
our,
love like November, but
oh
technically,
no, I
like
thought it
you
was
can
next summer.
no, like technically you can actually like stay until we get your position filled or like, but because it's not one of the required ones, like probably would just like through the end of the year transition off. If you're willing, like I definitely would love to see you stay, you all be participating through like these pieces. Um, and
Because I'm at my max
yeah,
consecutive, aren't I? Yeah. So
yeah.
I have to, yeah. I thought it was
So,
until next summer.
But you could be like me.
and we
And
extended a little bit. So the idea being too is like I really would like to have whatever the date this retreat gets scheduled, like have you all there because we want to like see you and and like celebrate you and all these things.
so this means that we also, elections include new public policy committee chair.
We should, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
well, it doesn't have to be actually, no, because those get appointed by the chair and vice chair.
Oh,
So
okay.
really the elections, yeah, are chair and vice chair, and that can happen later and that transition can happen later. But it'd be really great to get through state service plan development approval and legislative concepts and things like that, like if possible through, we're at time, but I feel most of the time I feel okay. I think I have some info to move forward with. Um,
Do we
I
need to do any official votes on any of these things?
maybe that's more like what we would do at the next one when I bring
Yeah.
some things forward. I mean, I don't know that you have to necessarily like vote that official on this and particularly for to say like explore those things or whatnot. But
Carrie, what makes the most sense for you thinking ahead, like another executive committee meeting? Are you thinking end of August or beginning of September? Like
within the
what?
next couple of weeks, if possible.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna have that stuff probably known on my end. My goal is by the end of next week.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, I could, have an update on all of that the following week. And can have someone reach out to schedule that.
That's great.
And to
Okay.
make sure we give time for notice. Did really quickly say before we jump off that the governor's office did approve the letter, finally. So that
Okay.
kind of landed in a weird timing. There's a few things in it that are a little outdated. And so I'm wondering if you would want to go back, if just update it and we get another approval, and I could and think about, yeah, the context, or if you wanted to use it as sort of like a general overall communication around, like, to those who, like, who we're serving and running programs, like, we value you so much. We're also, for those of you like coming in, we're so excited. And then we kind of refresh that and do that. And I apologize, things just moved at a weird pace out of time with that, but
Yeah.
I think that it's a good idea.
Yeah, agreed.
So I can
So maybe for the next
think about
exec,
that.
we could just have that ready to go, an update to that letter.
So my question is, and gets into process, if it's coming from the executive committee, you don't have to have the full board look at it and approve it, and the timing is weird for that. So probably it would be, I guess, Sierra bringing a new draft to the new meeting for you all to vote on. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Also, if y'all don't know Aaliyah, this is Aaliyah. I just realizing, like, she's filling in for Kelly today. She's the executive assistant to Julia and WTDB's board administrator. So I'm so sorry, Aaliyah. I'm just now
Hey,
realizing
I'm just here.
they're like, you're not Kelly. All right.
Sounds good. So with that said, you'll put a call out to us for the next exec meeting, which we'll have before the end of August at some point in time. And Sierra, you can take a look at that letter and sort of recraft it, and we can approve it then. Is there anything else for the good of the order?
I don't think so. I did just want to clarify, I'm not positive actually that we're elected, like, I need to look into it. So I just want to mention, like, Daniel and Heidi, I'll get back to you on, like, the whole, like, the election cycles and stuff, because I'm not positive that we'd actually be, like, fully re-electing Daniel's position. It would be like the other opening, or what, like, the succession is there. So I will also make sure I know that by the next meeting.
But Daniel might want to be chair.
Well, I know, that's what I'm saying.
Well, we can let's talk because I also remember that my term is wonky. And so
Yeah,
like
but you're not leaving. You're not leaving.
I want to clarify that because like let's
Right.
get that cleared off. And
Yeah.
then I did apply to the Ask Board. I think they're gonna send out notifications in um September is when it was like supposed to come out. And so just chatting about like that whole crossover and like my term and everyone else's term who's
Yes.
leaving, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so we'll add that to the agenda. Like, I'll clarify where that all stands too, because we want to make sure we're, like, not doing elections we didn't need to, but if we need to, we've got those on the agenda. So I will have, like, those details clarified on my end as well for the follow-up.
Gracias.
Okay,
As
of
always, just thank you all so much. Like,
course.
Thank you,
I
Kate.
gotcha.
glad to be going through all this with you all.
Yeah.
All right, with that said, it's 1:01. We're going to adjourn our meeting and we'll see you all in a few weeks or a couple weeks.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
y'all.